What was the incident in your high school? Story 1. A football player with the last name Parham got punished for some shit and was no longer allowed to walk the stage for graduation. One day, a friend of his pulled up in a truck outside of the cafeteria during lunch, slammed on the brakes, jumped out, and proceeded to sprint inside. He streaked through half the cafeteria with a Spider-Man mask on and Free Parham painted on his bare ass. Staff tried to grab him and stop him, and despite him literally slipping on a piece of food and falling, he escaped valiantly as any hero should. Eventually, Parham was once again allowed to walk the stage, although I'm sure the stunt wasn't the only reason for it. Story 2. So this happened yesterday and it was pretty wild for a Canadian school. At the end of the day there was a police car at the front of the school. Someone said they saw a kid get arrested when they went to the washroom. At the end of the day, a cop and the principal were standing at both back passenger windows talking to someone inside. We all just assumed that someone was getting arrested for selling drugs or something. The next day my homeroom teacher told us between 3rd and 4th period, the 2 afternoon periods in Canada, a former student who was about 20 years old blended in with students and snuck into the school hallways. He wandered through the hallways stealing from unlocked lockers and actually stole about 10 laptops from teachers' classrooms somehow. They ended up catching him at the Tim Hortons down the road. Not sure what's gonna happen to him, but someone said his mom was his getaway vehicle a couple blocks down the road. He just had to stop at Timmy's first. Only in Canada do people have to stop for a coffee and a donut mid-robbery. Story 3. I went to a private school where you weren't allowed to have your phone on you. One day the vice principal bursts into a classroom and says in a panic, "Quick, I need to use someone's phone." 10 kids got detention and their phones confiscated. Screw you, Mr. Kiefer. Story 4. Not high school, but I remember in elementary school, we got put on lockdown because someone thought there was a rabid fox on the field. It was a fat orange cat. Story 5. Some boys in the saxophone section of marching band made a Christmas card featuring them nude except for Santa hats and their sacks covering their sacks. They distributed to the whole band, which at our school was a pretty large number of people. School tried to confiscate them for being lewd, but of course they couldn't get them all. Besides, people had camera phones and Facebook. Story 6. Oh man. One time this kid I was friends with brought this hot sauce called the bomb, 1.5 million Scoville units, hotter than hell, to high school and let a bunch of kids try it during lunch. I mean at least 30 kids. Some kids really started freaking out because that shit is ridiculously hot, like you're supposed to add 1 or 2 drops to a big batch of chili to make it spicy. Some were trying to show off and took a swig of it and ended up vomiting everywhere from the heat/panic. Multiple kids had to go to the nurse and be sent home because they way overdid it, although I think most just really had no idea what a Scoville unit was or that they made hot sauce that was that ridiculously hot. It was chaos. I tried it as well, a dime-size amount, and I couldn't concentrate on anything but chugging milk. And I'm really good with spicy foods. Finally the principal came on the intercom and said, "Whoever brought the hot sauce, please, just stop." My friend got into some pretty big trouble for that one. Story 7. Senior year we received our yearbooks the week of graduation, and to our surprise the full-page action shot from men's soccer showcased our player jumping up and lifting one leg to trap and control the ball. Unfortunately, he forgot to wear underwear that game and the tip of his wiener was fully visible sticking out of the bottom of his shorts. Our school had over 4,000 students and we were required to bring our yearbook into security to have the dick sharpen over or we would not be able to walk at graduation. Story 8. It was the last day for the senior class. There were only 2 significant pranks that day. The principal's office was filled with balloons and glitter, and the main hallway entrance was saran-wrapped. About an hour before the day ended, the principal came over the loudspeaker and said that anyone caught participating in a prank would not walk at the graduation ceremony. About a minute after he said this, the fire alarm went off. A guy who was near the principal said that he got angry and said out loud, "Someone's not walking," before storming off. An entire wing of the school was hazy and smoke was pouring out of a classroom. Turns out the science teacher was doing a laser experiment for his class and created too much smoke with a smoke machine. Story 9. This happened in grade school, but a moose escaped a local zoo and somehow made its way to our schoolyard during our recess. We were all rushed inside and the school was put into a lockdown situation until the moose left the yard. One guess what country I'm from? Edit, wow, this blew up. Anyone who guessed Canada is right. I feel like there's nothing more Canadian than almost getting mowed down by a moose. Story 10. we were all called to an emergency assembly and told a student had died. Her friends were distraught and even the people who didn't know her went quiet. I think I remember a group of students putting together a type of memorial card. The whole morning was morbid. Until the dead girl arrived at school and didn't know what was going on. Story 11. This was back in the 70s. In 7th grade some girl just started groping the boys. If you got close to her she would immediately grab your groin or butt, whichever was closer. Sometimes she would grab both at the same time. Of course the boys started groping her back and it turned into a common thing to do and she let it happen. The boys then started groping other girls. Some went along with it and thought it was funny. Others got upset and told teachers and the principal. The principal called a big assembly and read the riot act. The girl that started it all acted shocked and outraged, but the adults knew she was the one that started the whole thing. Story 12. When I was in high school, our Hicktown school had a gang called the Cobras who would spray paint cobras on school property, write it on desks, in the bathrooms, basically everywhere. It was dumb and many of the students had a good idea who was a part of this gang but the teachers didn't. The principal would call down groups for photos in the yearbook, siblings, sports teams, drama club, etc., on overhead announcements, and one day they called down the Cobras for a school photo for the yearbook, to try and figure out who they were. They caught almost half the students who were defacing school property because they showed up for the group photo. Edit: no, they didn't get a photo in the yearbook. Story 13. Gym cooling system overheated and caught on fire during the homecoming parade. That and state police had to show up 2 years ago after an increase of freshman fights in the cafeteria. It got to the point to where there were some rumors that school security had to use a taser on one of the kids after a fight to subdue. The rumor was complete BS, and our football team had to cancel a home game and concede the game over potential threats. It was a crappy junior year, 2017 to 2018. Story 14. My high school had a decade-themed talent show every year. They would do it in our auditorium, which had an orchestra pit underneath part of the stage. Close to the end of the show a lot of people went out on the stage and started dancing, and the stage collapsed. Only a couple people were hurt, but one of my friends broke his pelvis and had to be in a wheelchair for a while. It must have been a slow day for the news because it made all the way to the BBC, and Tosh.o did a bit on it. Story 15. In my primary school someone had spread shit around the bathroom which they then blamed on me. Word got around and it was known by teachers and students that I had spread shit around the bathroom, even though I was in class. My teacher denied that though. I left that school rather soon after the shit spreading incident. Story 16. Someone took a massive shit in the boys' bathroom. Like huge. Like so big that there is still a debate about whether or not the shit was actually human or if it was smuggled in somehow. So notable that everyone from my consumer EC class got up individually to go to the bathroom and drop their jaw in awe at the absolute spectacle that was this shit. Multiple jokes were made about it at school events and to this day no one knows who did the poop. Story 17. This wasn't in my high school, but back in middle school someone got taken to court for bringing vodka to school in water bottles and then selling it to other students, 7th grade. There was also the crazy British kid who got suspended after saying he'd shoot up the school, also 7th grade. He apparently came back to the school a few months later, but I never met him. On the topic of violence, we also had several anonymous bomb threats left in the Spanish classroom throughout my 8th grade year. Story 18. Teachers treated my high school like a dating site. 2 teachers were known to have married students after they graduated. Long after graduation, 2 teachers got charged with molesting many students. Story 19. The cool guy Spanish teacher got arrested for fucking students. Also the athletic director got caught bribing the families of good athletes to be there, like 4 people from my year were in the NBA. Story 20. Someone I knew tried to call in a bomb threat from a payphone during finals week. This was in the 90s and nobody took him seriously, and the school found out who it was and suspended him for like a couple days. I'd imagine now the school would go on lockdown, or just close and not let any students in, since he did it early in the morning. The kid would probably end up getting arrested by a SWAT team with a bomb squad nearby, cost the city a fortune, get jailed, or at least expelled, and their life would be ruined. Story 21. Principal found weed in the boys' bathroom. Called an assembly and told us we had to vote for who we think it was. I think the principal's son got like 98% of the votes. Suddenly the voting system wasn't valid. We didn't even coordinate it, everyone had the same idea at once and it was glorious. Well, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed.